Your Honor, members of the jury, this case is not about whether Patricia Hearst was present during the crimes. It is about whether she was truly in control of her actions. The prosecution will tell you that a young woman from a good family willingly abandoned her life to join a domestic terrorist group. They will argue that she was in control, then that she made conscious decisions, and that she should be held accountable for them. But the evidence will show a starkly different reality, a reality in which Patricia Hearst was not a rebel, but a hostage. A young woman was abducted from her home, violently ripped from her family, and subjected to unimaginable psychological and physical abuse. The evidence will prove that the Symbionese Liberation Army did not just take her captive, they rewired her very sense of self. You will hear expert testimony from a leading neuroscientist who will explain how prolonged trauma changes the brain. The science is clear. When a person is held captive under certain circumstances of extreme stress, isolation, starvation, physical and psychological abuse, their ability to make rational, independent choices is stripped away. The brain enters a survival state where resisting or disobeying is not an option. You will also hear from a trauma recovery specialist who will testify that Patricia Hearst's responses were not those of a willing participant, but of a victim trying her best to survive. They will also explain coercive control, a form of psychological manipulation where victims come to believe that escape is impossible and resistance means death. A hostage negotiation expert will walk you through the methods used by the SLA to break her down. They will describe the pattern we see in countless hostage situations. The captors will isolate the victim, deprive them of basic needs, and repeatedly threaten their life until the victim feels they have no choice but to comply. You will hear that this is a well-documented phenomenon seen in cases of prisoners of war or survivors of cults. The prosecution wants you to believe that this is a simple case of a woman making poor choices. But life, and the human mind, does not work that way. Patricia Hearst was abducted. She was tortured. She was brainwashed. And when someone is subjected to that level of trauma, they do not make choices. They react. At the end of this trial, we will ask you to recognize what this evidence confirms: that Patricia Hearst was a hostage, not a criminal. That the SLA robbed her of her freedom, her identity, and her ability to resist. That she is not guilty of the crimes the prosecution claims she committed, because true free will requires the ability to say no, and that ability was taken from her. We trust that once you hear all of the evidence, you will return a verdict of not guilty.